here's exactly what I've really been dying to talk about, because as soon as I watched this episode of Love is Blind 3 with Nancy having this abortion talk with Bartise, not only could I not believe that this was happening on reality television, but it's so not the conversation that I think people assume. Yes, she is shilling for abortion, she's pro-abortion, but you really saw this authentic conversation between two people dating where one person is vehemently pro-choice and you see one person who's like this mushy middle pro-life person where it's like they're clearly pro-life, but in the moment you feel like scared to really hone in on that because it's not popular to sit there and be like, yeah, I actually think this is completely wrong. But like, okay, so let me just paint the picture of this situation. So, and clearly some of this is what the producers set up. It's like, they obviously know the ins and outs of these people. Here's what I know from being on reality TV. You go through like a 500-page questionnaire before you do these shows. They know every single thing you've done, every name of every person you've slept with, everything. So they know that he's probably like, ooh, I don't know, depends on the circumstances on abortion. And they know that this Nancy girl is vehemently pro-choice. And so they tell her, hey, you're marrying this guy while you guys are having like a casual chat in the living room. Why don't you ask him, like, what would he think if you had a baby together and that baby came out and it had some sort of medical deformity or it had Down syndrome? Like, see what he would think about that. So they're sorting laundry, they're folding laundry, and Nancy asked this guy, Bartise, if we had a baby and, you know, we knew we're pregnant and we know that this baby is going to come out and it has Down syndrome or it's going to have autism or it's going to be missing a limb, you know, what do you think about that? Like, would you still want to have the baby? And like, you see this guy and he's so taken aback. Bartise is so taken aback by this statement of her. Like, what do you mean? Do I want to have a baby? It's like, why would you even say that? Like, yes, of course, you know? And she's like, well, here's the thing. And this is what throws me for a loop. So not only is this like the sickest thing I've ever heard, but she's going, well, I'm a speech pathologist and I work with kids that have special needs and disabilities. And because I work with them, I know for a fact that if I was pregnant and I knew that this baby was going to have some sort of deformity, then I wouldn't want to have it. I would want to have an abortion. And you see his face just kind of, like, it's a total WTF moment. And he looks at her and he's like, absolutely not. Like, why would you just pull a plug on her life just because it's going to be missing an arm? Because it's going to have Down syndrome? You know, it's like barbaric eugenics is what she's talking about. Which, of course, we know is what the pro-choice people advocate for. This is exactly what they want. They are this radical. And he just tells her, look, she ends up kind of cornering him, and, you know, the guy, as the man who's feeling more on the pro-life side, he starts to feel this guilt because society tells him as a man, you can't be pro-life, you can't tell a woman that it's wrong to kill her own child. So he's like, well, you know, maybe if it was like you were really young and you made a mistake and like, you know, you didn't have the financial means, maybe one time, everybody should get one time that they're allowed to have an abortion. And she goes, well, why? Well, what's the time? Like, why does there need to be a limit on it? This is what she says to him. And he's like, well, because I just feel like more than once, like, that's too much. He said, I can't be down with that more than one time pulling the plug on a life. So he clearly knows that it's a human life. And so the question should be when somebody is saying that, like, well, I believe, you know, an abortion, for example, should be okay in this one situation, but not others, then of course you ask that person, you say, as a pro-lifer, you know, if I was in this situation with him and he's like a mushy middle pro-lifer, I would be like, okay, so why is it okay to pull the plug, this is his words, on a life at this stage, but not this stage of this baby's life? And of course he would say, well, because the baby's not born yet, you have financial issues. And then of course you say to him, well, who's to say this girl isn't 35 years old, has the baby, you're married, you encounter financial issues, or then you have this baby and you have everything going for you, but then that baby gets into a car accident and loses a limb. That baby falls off a swing set and gets some sort of problem. So then what? So then do you kill it? Well, no, that would be wrong. Why is it wrong? Because they say it's a human being. So it's a human being now, then what is it when it's in the womb? Can't answer that. So we know that at different stages of life, that doesn't determine somebody's worth. They're a human being from the beginning to the end. So we want to protect that life beginning to end. But Bartise is clearly struggling with this Nancy girl saying that she's so radically pro-choice. He invites her whole family over to meet her for the first time. And he brings up, he says, so we have all these things in common, mom, dad, sister, who's in the kitchen, but there's one thing that we don't really agree on. And they're like, oh, really? What is it? And he goes, well, it's abortion. And so his mom, his dad, his sister all turn to look at Nancy and they're like, oh, well, what are your views on abortion? And that's what she says. She says, well, because I work with kids with disabilities, I think we should kill them so they don't have a chance at life, which is very ironic because she would not have a job, right? Like if every pregnant mother knew in advance that they were going to have a child that struggles because of a different emotional or physical disability and they all aborted their child, Nancy Rodriguez would not have a job. So the whole thing is very ironic. But when she says this, the sister of Bartise starts weeping. I've never seen anything like this before. She's crying and she says, this is just too much for my heart to handle. I just absolutely believe this is a precious human life. We shouldn't kill it. The mom is like totally shaken, but she knows she's on camera for a reality show and she's trying to keep it together. The dad is sitting there you can see the wheels turning. He's like, this woman's a monster. My son cannot marry her. And so I guess what ends up happening is what ends up happening is they all meet her and they're very polite. His sister does cry because that is just such an extremist point of view to hear somebody say that I think in the moment you can't stop the emotions, because that's the thing. Once you recognize that it is a human life in the womb, you hear something like that and you see the evil. It's so clear. And so I think they went home and they were texting him and they were like, you cannot marry this woman in a couple days. Because, the premise of Love is Blind is you meet them and in 4 weeks you're getting married. And so anyway, those are my thoughts. My completely unhinged, that was just stream of consciousness, everything that I've been thinking in my brain, seeing that scene. And I was like, I have to tell you guys about this because I was just left on the floor. But I love Love is Blind. I've said this before, I'm really not into reality shows right now at all. This is one show. I like that show and I like The Ultimatum on Netflix. So Netflix is doing pretty decently. Those are 2 reality shows that I'm liking, but I was shocked that they brought this topic up because you do wonder in these reality shows, they're supposed to be talking about getting engaged and getting married. Surely they're having religion conversations, political conversations, and you wonder what they're saying behind the scenes. You know what I'm saying?